Here is my 5 audience members. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Macy Rycroft. What I will be discussing today is the question of whether collegiate athletes should be paid further compensation or not. Some athletes looking to advance to the professional level believe that they should receive a paycheck for playing a college sport. I personally believe it is a privilege to play in college and not a job. Your main focus in college should be able to receive a quality education. The scholarships athletes receive save them thousands of dollars in student loans and allow them access to a bright future. At this point in a student athlete's life, education should remain a top priority. Being a future college athlete myself, you would think I would be in alliance with the idea of further compensating college students. If I'm being honest, I wouldn't mind being paid to play in college, especially considering how much I'm paying to go to college. But after further research on the topic, I discovered the unfairness it would bring to non-athlete students and the negative effects it would have on the college as well. College is already immensely expensive. Can you imagine how much it would cost students if part of their tuition was used to pay the student athletes? This would be extremely unfair. In my opinion, college athletes should only be granted scholarships and not be paid separately. In 2013, a study was conducted to analyze the financial stability of Division I schools. This study showed that out of 228 schools, only 23 of them were operating in the black. This means only 10% of Division I schools could afford to pay their student athletes. In order to pay their students, most public institutions would be forced to ask taxpayers for monetary support, while private institutions would most likely increase tuition rates to meet financial obligations. It would be almost impossible to pay every single student at every single school. There are so many collegiate sports, all with different values. If men's basketball generated more revenue than women's basketball, it would cause a lot of controversies if the men got paid more, even though they both put in the same amount of time and effort. That would also raise the question of whether athletes should be paid individually or as an entire team, taking the revenue collected as a whole. If universities started to pay college athletes, there is no fair way to determine the athlete's value to the university. If a 5-star recruit starts to think his paycheck isn't big enough, what's to keep him from holding out on his contract? This is something seen at the professional level with Le'Veon Bell, a running back in the NFL who held out on his 4-year contract because he believed he deserved a higher income. I believe that instead of athletes being worried about getting paid, they should be grateful for the opportunity to play at a collegiate level. When it comes to college athletics, certain universities can make a sizable profit. The empirical results suggest that a premium college player generates over $500,000 in annual revenues for his or her team alone. For this reason, people believe that athletes should benefit. Along with attendance, colleges profit off of apparel sales, fundraisers, advertisements, and concession stands. According to data provided from the 2009 men's basketball season, Duke University's revenue from that year was over $26 million. Many people think that the players should receive a portion of this income. Men's college basketball and football are very profitable programs for universities. However, Duke University's revenue in 2009 was the most of any college in the country. This doesn't mean that every college makes this kind of money from sporting events. Duke is a top-rated basketball program in the NCAA and has a part of the biggest rivalry in college basketball. The NCAA states that 90% of the revenues generated through the games played by student athletes goes into services, programs, or direct distribution that directly benefits the students and schools. Many athletes also debate that due to the high risk of them being injured while playing for a college team, they deserve to be paid. If an athlete is looking to go play a sport professionally, an injury can be detrimental to their career. This was exactly the case for Duke University's best men's basketball player, Zion Williamson. While playing UNC, Duke's biggest rivalry team, Williamson encountered a freakish accident where his shoe split open, causing him to fall. He walked off the court that game and did not return. This raised question on whether Williamson would ever put on a Duke uniform again. Duke is not compensating Williamson beyond a scholarship. and the related costs of studying at and playing for the university. The NBA, however, would be compensating Williamson further. This caused him to hold out on his contract to resist further injury until he could play professionally. Although the players are taking a risk of being injured, they are placing themselves in that situation to partake in a sport that they enjoy. Athletes take a risk of injuring themselves at any level of organized sports. So unless we're going to start paying every athlete that is taking a risk, college athletes shouldn't be treated any different. Most of the athletes that leave high school going into a college sport receive scholarships. They automatically accept that there is a chance of injury by accepting these scholarships. The same situation occurs in any level of organized sports. Players take the chance of being hurt, but continue to engage in a sport for their own enjoyment. Many schools use the income from their athletic group programs to fund other programs and activities. Using the money to pay the students may force colleges to cut other organizations that don't bring in as much profit. Organizations such as cultural clubs, art clubs, and religious clubs. These programs may be removed because they cannot compete with the larger sports organizations. This could cause a reduction in students wanting to apply to this college, who wanted to partake in these eliminated programs. Universities with a large variety of clubs and groups look most appealing to applying students who aren't looking to join any athletics teams. Limiting the opportunities for non-athletes will only hurt the college's popularity and attendance rate. Even though college athletes are not paid, does not mean they don't receive compensation. Many athletes that play in college are getting significant scholarships, if not a full ride. Athletes that are getting a full ride to a university have access to a free education. Student athletes not only receive free education, board, and meal plans, they also receive exclusive benefits such as medical care, free academic support, access to training facilities, travel opportunities, and exposure. Many companies claim that they even seek to hire student athletes because of their leadership skills and time management. So as you can see, student athletes may not be physically paid, but the benefits they will receive will not only help them succeed in college, but in life. Student athletes are ultimately students first, hence why they are called student athletes, and need to focus on their education. Paying student athletes would ultimately shift the personal priorities of the student. They would most likely choose a program where they would be paid the most rather than where they would receive the best education. For the sake of college athletics and the future of the students, universities should not have to further compensate their students. Thank you very much.